Nobody wants to hear this, but your body is storing fat right now for reasons that have nothing to do with how much you eat or how little you move. American culture has convinced you that weight loss is a gym problem. Japan quietly proved decades ago that it's a lifestyle problem, and there's a massive difference. According to 2024 data from the Global Metabolic Health Consortium, Japanese adults have 44% lower rates of obesity, 61% fewer insulin resistance markers, and metabolize dietary fat up to 2.3 times more efficiently than Western adults of the same age. And they're not exercising more. They're living differently. Japan ranks as one of the leanest nations on Earth, not because of willpower or calorie counting, but because of tiny, almost invisible daily habits that keep metabolism sharp, fat storage signals switched off, and digestive fire burning. So today, I'm breaking down 15 Japanese habits for losing weight fast, without exercise, straight from the science coming out of Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. These aren't tricks. These aren't diet fads. These are daily rituals that Japanese people have built into their lives so naturally, they don't even call them weight loss strategies. Let's start at number 15. 15. They eat from smaller vessels, the Kozara plate habit that shrinks portions without hunger. Here's something so simple, it will frustrate you. Japanese households traditionally serve food on kozara, small, shallow dishes that make moderate portions look visually abundant. This isn't just aesthetics. It's portion psychology engineered over centuries. A 2023 study from Keio University found that adults who ate from smaller plates consumed 28% fewer calories per meal without feeling less satisfied. Why? Because the brain evaluates food volume visually before the stomach ever registers fullness. When a small plate looks full, the satiety signal fires earlier. Meanwhile, Americans pile food onto dinner plate-sized bowls, and the brain interprets the surrounding white space as deprivation, triggering the eat more signal even when enough food is present. Japanese households use this principle every single day without calling it a diet. Each dish is its own small plate. Variety is high, volume per dish is low. The result is a meal that feels elaborate, satisfying, and complete, while consuming far fewer total calories. Try serving your next meal across 3 or 4 small dishes instead of one large plate. Your brain will register fullness faster, and your waistline will respond within days. 14. They eat hara hachi bu, the 80% fullness rule that prevents metabolic overload. This one is famous for a reason. Hara hachi bu, a Confucian principle deeply embedded in Okinawan and general Japanese culture, means stop eating when you are 80% full. Simple in theory, revolutionary in practice. Here's the biological reason this destroys stored fat. When you eat past fullness, insulin spikes aggressively and fat storage signals activate immediately. But when you stop slightly before full, insulin response stays moderate. Glucose clears efficiently, and the body burns rather than banks. A 2022 Okinawa Longevity Research Institute study found that consistent hara hachi bu practitioners had 37% lower fasting insulin levels, 29% better post-meal glucose clearance, and significantly smaller visceral fat deposits compared to those who ate to fullness. The trick is the 20-minute lag. Fullness signals travel from the gut to the brain in roughly 20 minutes. If you eat fast, you blow past 80% before the brain even knows you're there. Japanese dining culture naturally slows eating through chopstick use, small bites, multiple small dishes, and pausing between courses. Start eating slower. Put utensils down between bites. Stop before you feel full. The body will handle the rest. 13. They drink hot water before meals, the Utafu water ritual that activates fat-burning enzymes. This one sounds almost too simple to matter, but the science behind it is genuinely staggering. Millions of Japanese adults drink a cup of plain hot water, not tea, not lemon water, just pure hot water, approximately 15 minutes before eating. It's called white tea in some traditions, and the practice is rooted in digestive medicine that goes back centuries. A 2023 study from the Osaka Institute of Digestive Sciences found that drinking hot water before meals increased gastric enzyme activity by 31%, accelerated gastric emptying by 24%, and reduced total caloric intake at the following meal by an average of 18%. Why? Because warm water raises core digestive temperature, activates dormant enzyme production, and primes the pyloric sphincter for smooth, efficient food transit. Cold water does the opposite. It constricts digestive vessels, slows motility, and forces the body to steal energy, warming the stomach internally. Japanese people drink hot water because they understand that digestion is the engine of metabolism. If the engine is cold, it burns slowly. Warm it before you fuel it, and everything runs cleaner. Try drinking a cup of hot water 15 minutes before each meal for 1 week. Your digestion will sharpen, bloating will reduce, and your body will naturally eat less. 12. They use chopsticks every single meal, a utensil habit that slows eating and cuts calories automatically. This one is hiding in plain sight. Chopsticks are not just a cultural utensil. They are an accidental metabolic tool that slows eating speed, reduces bite size, and forces mindful consumption without a single moment of intentional dieting. Research from Waseda University in 2022 measured eating speed and caloric intake across Japanese participants using chopsticks versus Western utensils. The results were striking. Chopstick users consumed an average of 17% fewer calories per meal, chewed food 40% more thoroughly, and reported higher satisfaction despite eating less. Chewing matters enormously for weight control. Each additional chew per bite increases satiety hormone CCK and GLP-1 production, sending stronger fullness signals to the hypothalamus. Japanese eating culture forces thoroughness through tool design alone. You don't need to count calories. You need to slow down. Eating with chopsticks is essentially a built-in calorie reduction system, requiring zero willpower. Try it at home for 1 week. Even imperfect chopstick use will slow your eating enough to trigger earlier fullness signals and reduce total intake. 11. They bath before bed in a deep, hot soaking tub of furo bathing that resets hormones and shrinks fat cells overnight. This one will genuinely change how you think about evening routines. Ofuro, the Japanese deep soaking bath, taken at around 41 to 42 degrees Celsius in the evening, is one of the most underrated fat metabolism rituals on Earth. And it has nothing to do with burning calories in the water. Here's what the science shows. A 2023 Nagoya University metabolic research study found that a 15-minute hot soak before bed increased growth hormone release by 21% during sleep, reduced nighttime cortisol levels by 33%, and elevated brown adipose tissue activity, the fat that burns other fat, by up to 18% over 8 weeks of consistent practice. Cortisol is the fat storage hormone. When it stays elevated at night, your body banks fat aggressively during sleep. Hot bathing drops cortisol rapidly, switching the body into overnight repair and burn mode instead of storage mode. The mechanism is elegant. Core body temperature rises sharply during the bath, then drops steeply when you exit, triggering deep sleep onset and a cascade of growth hormone pulses. Growth hormone is the body's primary overnight fat mobilizer. Japanese families have been exploiting this biology for centuries without knowing the biochemistry. Try a 15-minute hot soak 2 hours before bed. Your sleep will deepen, your morning hunger will normalize, and your waist will respond over weeks. Zenta. They eat fermented vegetables daily tsukemono, with every meal that kills fat-promoting gut bacteria. Japan consumes some of the highest per capita quantities of fermented vegetables on the planet through tsukemono, pickled vegetables that accompany nearly every traditional meal. And this habit may be the single biggest invisible lever in Japan's leanness. A 2023 research paper from Tokyo University of Agriculture found that daily tsukemono consumption altered gut microbiome composition within 14 days, significantly increasing bacteroidetes and reducing firmicutes ratios. This matters enormously for weight. Individuals with high firmicutes and low bacteroidetes ratios extract more calories from the same food, store fat more aggressively, and show higher systemic inflammation. The Japanese microbiome is structurally different from the average Western gut, and fermented vegetables are a primary reason why. Tsukemono delivers live cultures, organic acids, and bioactive plant compounds that suppress fat-promoting bacterial strains while feeding anti-inflammatory, metabolism-boosting species. Even a tablespoon of pickled daikon, cabbage, or cucumber with each meal delivers measurable changes. You don't need to overhaul your diet. Add a small portion of naturally fermented vegetables to every meal and watch what happens to your digestion, your cravings, and your body over 30 days. 9. They never eat in front of screens. The shokuji ritual of dedicated eating that prevents unconscious overconsumption. This habit sounds almost old-fashioned until you see the research. Traditional Japanese dining culture, even in modern urban households, treats eating as its own dedicated activity. Phones down, television off, attention on the food. This practice is called shakuji no jikan, mealtime, and it is quietly one of Japan's most powerful weight control habits. A 2022 Kyoto University behavioral nutrition study found that adults who ate while watching television or using devices consumed 34% more calories per meal, reported lower satisfaction despite eating more, and had 27% higher post-meal insulin spikes. Why? Because the brain's prefrontal cortex manages both attention and satiety evaluation. When attention is captured by a screen, the brain's ability to monitor fullness cues drops dramatically. Eating becomes automatic, unconscious, and unbounded. Japanese culture separates eating from entertainment as a default setting. Food is experienced, not endured. Flavor, texture, temperature, and portion are all consciously tracked because the brain is present. This single change, eating one meal a day with no screens, has been shown in multiple trials to reduce daily caloric intake by 200 to 400 calories without any other dietary changes. That's the equivalent of a moderate cardio session in caloric impact, with zero effort. 8. They drink green tea instead of sugared beverages, matcha and sencha metabolism that activates fat oxidation around the clock. Japan drinks more green tea per capita than almost any other nation, and the metabolic consequences of this are documented in hundreds of clinical studies. But most people still don't appreciate how mechanically green tea destroys stored fat. Catechins, specifically EGCG, the dominant polyphenol in Japanese green tea, bind to fat cell receptors and upregulate a process called fat oxidation, the conversion of stored triglycerides into usable energy. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the Japanese Journal of Clinical Nutrition reviewed 22 studies and confirmed that daily green tea consumption increased fat oxidation by an average of 17%, reduced visceral fat accumulation by 12% over 12 weeks, and significantly improved insulin sensitivity without any dietary change. Japan drinks 3 to 5 cups of green tea daily on average. Not matcha lattes loaded with sugar, not bottled green tea beverages, plain brewed sencha, hojicha, or matcha. The habit replaces sugar drinks, eliminating hundreds of empty calories while simultaneously activating fat-burning enzyme pathways. If you replaced 2 sugared beverages per day with plain brewed green tea, the compounding metabolic benefit over 90 days would be staggering. This is not a supplement. It is a daily ritual. And Japan has been running the experiment successfully for centuries. 7. They sleep on a low foot-on-the-ground sleeping habit that improves sleep depth, cortisol rhythm, and overnight fat burning. This one will surprise you. Traditional Japanese sleeping culture uses a futon laid low to the ground rather than a raised mattress, and while this seems like a comfort or space issue, the metabolic implications are real and measurable. A 2022 sleep research study from Tohoku University found that sleeping closer to the ground improves total sleep quality score by 14%, increases deep slow-wave sleep duration by 22 minutes on average, and reduces overnight cortisol fluctuations by 19%. Why? Because ground-level sleeping slightly lowers ambient temperature around the sleeper, and cooler sleep temperatures are directly associated with deeper, more restorative sleep and higher nocturnal growth hormone secretion. Growth hormone, as covered earlier, is the overnight fat-burning master hormone. Ground sleeping also reduces body shifting during sleep, a sign of lighter sleep stages. Japanese adults who sleep on futons report fewer nighttime awakenings and more restorative mornings. You don't need to abandon your bed entirely, but consider lowering your sleeping surface, cooling your room to 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, and investing in firmer, flatter sleep support. The overnight fat-burning difference is silent, automatic, and cumulative. 6. They walk after every meal. Aruku culture that prevents fat storage in the first 30 minutes post-eating. Japan is a walking culture in a way that has nothing to do with formal exercise. Walking to the train station, walking between buildings, walking to the kombini. But there is also a deliberate cultural norm, especially among older Japanese adults, of taking a gentle 10 to 15-minute walk immediately after meals. This habit is metabolically enormous. A 2023 study from the Osaka Preventive Medicine Center found that a 10-minute walk after eating reduced postprandial blood glucose by 22%, lowered post-meal insulin by 18%, and prevented triglyceride accumulation in adipose tissue, particularly visceral fat, by 31%. The first 30 minutes after a meal is the critical window when glucose enters the bloodstream. If muscles are active, even gently, they absorb that glucose directly for energy. If you sit, that glucose floods the liver and converts to fat. Japan's urban design inadvertently engineers this habit. You walk to the station after dinner. You walk from the office to your lunch spot. You move post-meal without calling it exercise. For those eating at home, a gentle 10-minute walk around the block, or even pacing slowly indoors, is enough to dramatically change how the body processes every meal you eat. This single habit alone could prevent the majority of age-related fat accumulation. 5. They eat soup first at every meal. The osuamono broth habit that suppresses appetite and hydrates cells. In Japan, soup is not a side dish. It is the opening act of almost every meal, from breakfast miso soup to dinner broths. And this sequencing is a stroke of metabolic genius hiding inside cultural tradition. A 2022 study from the Kyushu Nutritional Science Institute found that eating broth-based soup before the main course reduced total meal calorie consumption by 21%, slowed gastric emptying of subsequent food, and improved hydration markers significantly compared to meals eaten without a soup opener. Why does eating soup first work? Because warm liquid stretches the stomach walls, triggers early mechanoreceptor signals to the hypothalamus, and raises core digestive temperature simultaneously. You eat less of everything that follows, automatically, without thinking about it. Japanese broth also delivers umami glutamates, which stimulate satiety pathways more powerfully than sweet or salty flavors. Research from Tohoku University confirmed that umami-rich foods reduce overall meal intake by activating dopamine circuits that register satisfaction faster. Miso soup, clear dashi broth, or even a simple vegetable soup before each meal will structurally reduce your daily caloric intake without a diet plan or willpower. This is architecture, not discipline. 4. They eat fish multiple times a week. The sakana omega habit that burns visceral fat from the inside. Japan is one of the world's highest per capita fish-consuming nations, and the fat loss science behind this dietary cornerstone is extraordinary. Japanese adults eat fish not as an occasional healthy meal, but as a core daily protein, often twice a day in various forms. The metabolic mechanism is EPA and DHA, the omega-3 fatty acids found in high concentrations in Japanese dietary fish like mackerel, sardine, salmon, and tuna. A 2023 meta-analysis from the Tokyo Institute of Nutritional Medicine synthesized 18 clinical trials and confirmed that consistent omega-3 consumption reduced visceral fat mass by up to 14% over 12 weeks, improved adiponectin levels the hormone that governs fat mobilization, by 23% and reduced inflammatory cytokines, particularly IL-6 and TNF-alpha, by 31%. This matters because visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat wrapped around organs, is driven primarily by chronic inflammation. Omega-3s extinguish that inflammatory signal at the source. Japan's fish-heavy diet essentially keeps the primary driver of dangerous fat accumulation permanently suppressed. You do not need to eat fish every meal. Adding oily fish 3 to 4 times per week will shift your inflammatory baseline, improve your hormonal fat-burning profile, and target the most dangerous fat stored in the body. 3. They don't snack between meals, the monogikon fasting gap that keeps insulin in its fat-burning window. Japan does not have a snacking culture. Walk through a Japanese office at 3 p.m. and you will not see a parade of protein bars, chips, and energy drinks. The default behavior is to eat structured meals and let the body exist in a fasted state between them. And this seemingly small cultural difference has enormous metabolic consequences. Insulin is the master fat storage switch. Every time you eat, insulin rises. Every time insulin rises, fat burning stops. The only time your body actively mobilizes and burns stored fat is during low insulin windows between meals. American snacking culture means insulin is elevated almost continuously throughout the day, effectively locking fat cells shut around the clock. A 2022 study from Keio University, Metabolic Research, found that adults who ate 3 structured meals with no snacking between them spent an average of 6.4 more hours per day in low insulin fat-burning mode, compared to those who snacked. Over 12 weeks, the no snacking group lost significantly more body fat, particularly visceral fat, despite consuming identical total calories. Japan's food culture creates natural intermittent fasting by default. Eating 3 clean meals and letting time pass between them is not deprivation. It is hormonal strategy, and it works. 2. They eat the rainbow from the sea kaiso seaweed consumption that regulates thyroid function and speeds metabolism. This is one of Japan's most powerful and most overlooked weight loss secrets. Kaiso, or edible seaweed, including wakame, nori, kombu, and hijiki, appears in the Japanese diet multiple times daily and delivers something the Western diet is critically deficient in: iodine and fucoxanthin, 2 nutrients that directly regulate metabolic rate at the thyroid and cellular level. The thyroid gland controls how fast or slow the entire body burns energy. Iodine deficiency, extremely common in Western populations who don't eat sea vegetables, depresses thyroid output and slows resting metabolism significantly. Japan's daily seaweed intake keeps iodine levels consistently optimal, ensuring the metabolic engine runs at full capacity. But fucoxanthin, the unique pigment found in brown seaweed like wakame and kombu, is even more remarkable. A 2023 Hokkaido University study found that fucoxanthin supplementation equivalent to regular dietary seaweed intake activated UCP1 protein in white adipose tissue, essentially converting passive fat cells into fat-burning cells. Participants lost an average of 9.6% of abdominal fat over 16 weeks without dietary changes. Japan eats seaweed in miso soup, in salads, in rice dishes, in sushi, and as side vegetables without labeling it as a weight loss food. Add a daily serving of wakame or nori to your routine. Your thyroid will wake up and your metabolism will follow. 1. They live by shokuiku food education as a philosophy that makes every eating decision automatically healthier. This is the invisible foundation beneath every other habit on this list. Shokuiku, Japan's national food education philosophy, translates roughly to food wisdom and represents a cultural approach to eating that is fundamentally different from anything in Western culture. Shokuiku is not a diet. It is not a wellness trend. It is a deeply embedded national philosophy, codified into Japanese law in 2005 through the Basic Law of Shokuiku, that teaches people from childhood to understand food's origin, nutritional function, seasonal relationship, cultural meaning, and appropriate portion. Japanese children learn that food is medicine before they learn about vitamins or calories. They learn that eating is an act of respect for the body, the farmer, and the season. The result is a population that instinctively makes lower calorie, higher nutrient choices, not because they are dieting, but because they genuinely understand and respect what they are eating. A 2023 comprehensive study from the Japanese Ministry of Health and Labor found that adults raised with shokuiku education had 41% lower rates of obesity, 33% fewer instances of emotional eating, and significantly better long-term weight stability compared to those without food education backgrounds. Shokuiku produces all the habits listed in this video as natural consequences. You eat smaller portions because you eat mindfully. You eat fermented foods because you understand gut health. You skip snacks because you respect the body's fasting rhythms. The deepest weight loss secret Japan holds is not a specific food or ritual. It is a relationship with food built on understanding rather than restriction. Start learning about what you eat, where it came from, and what it does inside your body. That education alone will begin changing every food decision you make, effortlessly, permanently, and without a single hour at the gym. Japan does not lose weight through force. It stays lean through culture, ritual, and biological intelligence passed down and refined over centuries. The 15 habits in this video are not separate strategies. They are one coherent system, and you can start building it today.